Hello and welcome to another A-Push video with Mr. Pate for Barlow High School. Today we're looking at political machines. First we want to start with political machine versus machine politics. Political machines are organizations at a city and state level primarily that we're going to look at that were big features in the Gilded Age. Okay? Big features in what was happening with cities and states. They stick around and they last for quite a while. But that's different than machine politics. Today that term machine politics means, well, every politician at national level, if you have a presidential primary system and you have different people going, you would say the so-and-so's machine or the so-and-so machine. And that basically means the political operation they've put together and the full force of all of their networks of donors and their media hookups and their operatives and just everything related to that. They're different things, okay? All right, so how does the system work at a city level? We're going to start with the state level, we'll end up with the state level, make this pretty quick. So if you look at a city machine, in the center you got the boss right here. The boss of the machine is going to, and you know, the most famous example is going to be, of course, Boss Tweed with the Tammany Hall city machine. But basically, he's in charge. He's going to have district leaders, and these are going to be people that are, for whole sectors of the town, they're going to be in charge of that section of town, main subordinates to the boss. You're also going to have ward bosses, which are basically, a ward would be maybe a couple of neighborhoods. Now remember, the average tenement during this time has 36 to 40 people living in it. Okay? That's one building that used to be some rich person's house that's now divided up. They are super densely populated. And who is having the city machines? We're talking about the old immigrants. We're not really talking about native-born Protestants, and we're not talking about the Southern and Eastern Europeans that start showing up in the 1880s and 1890s all the way into the early 20th century. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the older immigrants. Irish are going to be unrivaled in their success in this, but they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. But it is older immigrants that are going to get into the game. So you have the boss, you have these different leaders, and then with the ward bosses, they have their neighborhood blocks that they're in charge of. And so they might be in charge of like meeting the needs of a couple thousand people. How do they meet the needs? They're going to go and send people trolling on the docks when immigrants are getting off the boats. They're going to help them. And again, if you're Italian or if you're Irish or whatever, you're going to have your own section kind of town that's your own area. You're going to go get people. You're going to help them find housing in your area. You're going to help them find jobs. I'll explain how they get those things in just a minute. So people are going to be put on the road to citizenship in terms of getting to vote. They're going to be offered a place to stay and employment. And this is going to seem like a dream come true to disoriented immigrants getting off the boat who don't know anyone. They also get to stay in a secure, warm blanket of a culturally familiar environment where if they're Irish, everybody around them is Irish American. So there you go. And these ward bosses, their job is to meet the people's needs. If someone was having a problem legally, they might go and talk to the judge, this ward boss, this kind of subordinate person. If a family, had some major problem or illness, they might bring them a little food or help them out in some way. Their job was to keep people happy and rolling along until election time. And here's how this works then. When we got to election time, basically, you do not have an Australian secret ballot at this time. There's no secret ballot. So without a secret ballot, basically these machine politicians are going to supervise the voting of the citizens, these immigrants who come off the boat. And it's very clear to these citizens, you vote the way you're supposed to or everything you've got goes bye-bye. It's going to be going away. You won't have any of it. So of course they're all going to vote the right way. And then what they're going to do is basically tell them who should be some of the people on the city council, who should be the mayor, and then here's where it all comes into payoff for the ward bosses. Because you might be saying, what do they get out of it? They're helping all these people, they get the people elected, so how does it benefit them? This is how it's going to benefit them. The boss, anytime there are contracts for fire service, for firemen, for garbage pickup, for building a bridge or a building or anything that needed a contract for someone to do a job, any kind of work it would be. People doing like cement or concrete, people building, framing in a building, whatever it was, they're going to basically, the boss is affiliated with some business owners and landlords. So they're going to have a deal with a landlord and say, hey, we will ensure you always have an adequate, you're going to be full. We're going to keep you at full residency so you're making maximum money, and they kind of work out an acceptable amount of money based on other factors that they know about. So these people are going to come and they'll say, okay, you can stay at this person's tenement or whatever building, and you're going to have a room in there and be on your way. Also, they're going to arrange them jobs. Who with? Well, with some of these business owners who operate different kinds of factories. Again, we'll give you workers. They won't cause trouble. They're not going to be unionized. We'll provide them, and they'll be happy workers doing their best, or else. And, all these people, they've got places to stay. They've got jobs now. And this is an arrangement between the boss and the business owner and landlords. Okay, so this seems like this works great, but we still haven't explained how any of the money gets in there. Okay? Well, this is how. We're going to have two kinds of ways. One of these ways is called a kickback. And the other one's just going to be graft. Okay? A kickback is going to be that in return for the politicians not doing an open bidding process where everyone can see it, just choosing who they want to get the bids for all these government jobs and work construction projects that need to be done, the politicians are going to, of course, at the direction of the boss, they're going to choose these businesses and give them the contracts. And at these contracts, this is where we get graft. Basically, these people are going to dramatically overcharge for these jobs. So what you start to see is jobs on the government payroll earning fantastic amounts of money. Now, today we don't really see that. You see that the college football coach or basketball coach is the highest paid public official in a state. They make far more than the governor or the college or university president. That's not how it was back then, though. You would have somebody who did masonry work or whatever, that that different people with these jobs, different companies, are going to get paid dramatic amounts more than the job should cost. Sometimes 10, 20, or 100 times what the job should be hired. There was one example in Tammany Hall of someone, I believe they made $14,000 doing concrete work for one day. Now keep in mind how much inflation has happened and how much that would be worth today. That's an astonishing amount of money. That's making six figures for one day of doing concrete. I would take him up on that if I was offered $100,000 plus to go do concrete work for a day. I'm sure I could handle that, and I'm sure you could too. So the graft is dramatic overcharging over what it should be for the cost. The Credit Mobilier scandal we talked about already in this class is a perfect example of this. The Credit Mobilier company was doing massive graft, charging fantastic amounts over what the actual cost should be. Well, that's what you see here with this example also. And then here's where the kickback comes in. Basically, some of the money, there's going to be some sort of a business profit sharing agreement with the boss where he's getting a dramatic amount of money, but then the boss and the company are going to give a kickback, basically like a bribe. It's kind of a thank you bribe. They're going to say, okay, you guys get to pocket some extra money because we've gotten this contract. The boss and the business owners are sharing all the profits because the boss is making all of it happen. The politicians, then, they get their pocket lined with some extra cash in this situation. So that's kind of how the system worked. Who's the loser in this? The loser is obviously the taxpayer and just honesty and moral behavior in society. They're going to lose because when you have someone getting paid, think about how much overpayment that would be if someone got paid $100,000 to do construction work for one day. That means a ton of taxpayer money is being wasted and just ripped off that could be doing some other project. Or if it was just working more efficiently, think how many more things could have gotten done. One way or the other, it's a bad thing for citizens and they lose. Now, what's the good side of the political machines at the city level? Hey, all these immigrants coming in, if there wasn't a machine doing this, bad news. Okay? They're going to get acclimated and get dialed into society and be able to become productive citizens because of the machines. There was no governmental welfare system or network at this time. So if you had people who disaster struck and the ward boss is helping him out, or one of his subordinates is helping them out, well, basically that would have not been anyone doing that, because the government had no social services, no welfare, no unemployment, nothing to help the poverty level people. There were no food stamps, none of that. So the citizens lose in general, the low-class immigrants win, of course, and all of these people benefiting from this corrupt system win as well. We will see in the progressive era reforms that come from this, but they're not around yet. At the state level, what does this look like? Well, it's an interesting thing. States at this time still got to, in the state legislature, choose the senators. So the senators are all going to be people who at a state level, you kind of have this political machine as well, and the state level machine is going to select senators. Well, those are all going to be good old boys in the pocket of these trusts and these monopolies that we talked about on the previous video, and local machines. They're going to be beholden to them. They're going to be doling out lots of state level jobs and contracts. So you do have a level of corruption certainly at a state level, and unfortunately until the populist movement, the progressive era comes in after the populist, this is not going to completely disappear. We see examples of some of this today. Rod Blagojevich, he's been recently convicted of for 14 years in prison for trying to sell a Senate seat. Okay, to replace Senator Obama when he became President Obama, he got to appoint someone as the governor to fill the remainder of the term, and he was caught by the FBI trying to sell the seat. There are lots of examples where they find that there's been some corruption deal with some contract. So it's certainly mostly gone, but you do find some examples of government corruption today at the city level or the state level still. Now I want to emphasize, due to progressive era reforms and later reforms, what was going on then is nothing like today. It is so much better. But we do see isolated examples once in a while, and that's what I was trying to get across to you. That is all we have for today on the political machines and their impact on cities at this time. Stay classy, Sam Barlow.